This is What If on the Kolbrin Bible, Book 2, Chapter 3. GLN 3:5 talks of great monsters, possibly dinosaurs. Wouldn't the elephant look like a rat against a dinosaur? The beast changed to stone. It talks of changes to the face of earth. Maybe this refers to volcanoes, lava, or just buried under the stone. GLN 3:5 In olden times there were spawned great monsters and beasts in fearful form, with frightful gnashing teeth and long ripping claws. An elephant was but a rat in comparison with them. Then, because of heavenly rebellion and turmoil, and the terror overwhelming the hearts of men, the Great One hardened the face of the land, which had become unstable, and the beasts were changed to stone. This was before times when the destroyer still slumbered in the upper vaults of heaven. In Book 1, it talked of 2 moons. This passage refers to when the destroyer still slumbered in the upper vaults of heaven. Could it refer to the second moon still being in its place? CRT 3:13 The waters were purified, the sediments sank, and life increased in abundance. Life was renewed, but it was different. Man survived, but he was not the same. The sun was not as it had been, and a moon had been taken away. Man stood in the midst of renewal and regeneration. He looked up into the heavens above in fear for the awful powers of destruction lurking there. Henceforth, the placid skies would hold a terrifying secret. GLN 3:6 refers to people being wicked and warnings being ignored. Sounds like Noah's flood. GLN 3:7 talks of a floodgate in heaven, maybe a layer of water around the earth and an object, possibly destruction of the second moon, piercing that boundary. GLN 3:6 Thus it is written in the record of Belcherah, in those days the people were wicked, and though the wise men among them gave many warnings of the wrath to come, they would not listen. Such is the way of the wicked. So it came about that the hastening spirit became stirred up against them because of the odor of wickedness arising from the earth, for her nostrils abhorred the smell of evil. This is a smell no man can know, for as the hounds know the smell of fear, which no man can detect, so can other beings know the smell of wickedness. GLN 3:7 The great floodgates which are above earth were all opened. Thus the floodwaters rose up to cover the land, and great rainstorms lashed down. The winds could no longer discover their destinations. GLN 3:8 talks of Shannara, and that is referred to earlier, and I thought maybe it might have been Mesopotamia plain. GLN 3:9, 3:10, and 3:11, this seems to sound a bit like Moses bringing down the 10 Commandments. GLN 3:8 The people left the plain of Shannara and fled up into a great mountain rising above the flatlands below. And here, near the summit, they camped, feeling themselves secured. The wicked mocked, saying, No water can ever reach up here, for there is not enough of it in heaven or earth. Still, the waters rose ever higher, and the mouths of the wicked were silenced. The priests of the people danced and chanted in vain, and many rituals were performed to appease the wrath above. GLN 3:9 There came a period of quietness. Then the people built a gateway to heaven, wherein the chief of interpreters might commune with the other realm. He entered into the silence and cast his spirit. And when he had done so, it contacted the hastening spirit, which men call by other names. Her voice was heard within his heart, and it said, I am that which has been called forth by the odor of wickedness arising from the bodies of men, which no incense can disguise. For as the smell of putrefaction assails the nostrils of men, so does wickedness give forth something which assails us in this realm. Wickedness is therefore an offense against us. If a man threw filth over the wall into your courtyard, would you not consider this an act of hostility? Could any among you live in harmony with those who are insensitive to your own sensitivity? Thus, I am awakened to happenings in the world of men, and am now clothed in a performing substance. GLN 310. The spirit being said, I have no desire to unduly punish men. Go out to the people and tell them that if they will but mend their ways and walk no more in the path of wickedness, I shall depart. But when the chief of interpreters returned to the people, he found them fearful and distraught, clay in the hands of false priests, devotees of the baleful gods. The false priests were crying out for a sacrifice to their gods, and had seized Ananias, a young man more handsome than any other, a messenger and runner between cities. Then, though they whispered fearfully among themselves concerning the deed, the people had seized Nanua, handmaiden of Aloma, the enlightened one, whose life was dedicated to Ilana, for she had cried out curses upon their heads when the young man was taken. GLN 311. Nanua and Anis were held by the false priests, and about them surged the great mass of the people. And though the chief of interpreters raised his voice, it went unheeded. Then the mass of the people moved down to the water's edge, and there they stopped, while the priests shouted prayers to the gods raging above. All the heavens were darkened with great rolling clouds, and there were high winds and lightning about the mountaintop. The people rent their garments, the women wailed, and men struck their forearms. Anis was beaten with a club and delivered to the waters. GLN 314, 315. This sounds again like Exodus, except here the spirit being was not angered, and the chief interpreter was consoled and shown that even though these other priests got the outcome they hoped for, it was still an unnecessary sacrifice. GLN 314. The chief of interpreters went sorrowfully apart, hiding himself, for now he was fearful for his life. When the waters had subsided, he cast his spirit and entered into communion with the hastening spirit, and he said, Shall I also enter the falling waters as a sacrifice? For life is now futile, as I am without God or honor. The Great One answered, Men see in events the things they wish to see. They can interpret only according to their understanding. The waters rose to their limitation, and did not fall because of the needless sacrifices. The powers above may ordain events to chasten men, but more often such events are challenges and tests. However, divine intervention is rare indeed. GLN 315. These priests follow another, a longer path, but they too condemn wickedness, and they too point the way to truth. Though that way may be indirect and beset with hazards. So, whether they or you reach the ears of the people, the odor of wickedness will be diminished. Divine ends are achieved by diverse means, and the eyes of few men are opened to see either the means or the end. GLN 316. This sounds to me like it is doing a bit of chastising, pointing out you cannot lose God, and worrying about prestige is a worldly thing and of little real value. GLN 316. Life is never futile, but your sacrifice would be. No man can lose his God, for he is always there. But the prestige of a man because of that God, such prestige is a worldly thing of little real value. How do you know whether you have lost or gained? Events of the moment cannot be weighed in the moment, but can be assessed only by the judgment of the years. Only eternity knows whether this or that was good or bad, a gain or a loss. GLN 317. The first sacrifice, which is Ananias, who was seen in a positive light on earth, was, after death, not pleasant to behold. Possibly he only pretended to be virtuous in public. The second, Nanua, was seen even more lovely on the other side, and the man, Shalut, that walked with her on earth was a man of quiet ways and neither handsome nor strong, but on the other side was glowing with youth and vitality. GLN 3:17. Then the Great One opened the eyes of the chief of interpreters, so he saw beyond the earthly border into the realm beyond. Behold, he saw Anis, who had been strong and handsome on earth, and now he was something not pleasant to gaze upon. He saw also the true beauty of Nanua, who was now a being of dazzling loveliness, and beside her was Shalut, who had always loved her secretly, and he was now glowing with youth and handsome as Halith. The chief of the interpreters then understood that evil could be transmuted into good, and that men had little knowledge of the true nature of things. GLN 3:18. Temple was built in the form of a circle of white stones, where people remember the day of deliverance. I thought of Peru, since there is a stone that tracks the equinoxes. However, since we are talking of an Egyptian text, possibly more accurate could be Göbekli Tepe. GLN 3:18. Upon the mountain there is now a grove of trees and a temple built in the form of a circle of white stones, where the people remember the day of their deliverance. But what they recall and what happened are not the same, nor is the cause in their minds the true cause. They say, "We are the children of Atuma, who saved us." Many, who have gone often to the temple of deliverance, say they have seen two shades, one radiantly beautiful and one gloriously handsome, wandering hand in hand through the trees, or sitting in the sunlit glades. All about is now a place of peace. This recaps the idea that mankind worship or respect the unknown powers out of fear and fashioned image that frightens them in the gloom of ignorance, yet spurn the real for the unreal. And if we saw more clearly, we would understand these things we fear are gentle and sturdy hands that, if listened to, can steer you to contentment, which is basically considered an adult who is chastising a child for misbehaving. And if you learn from the chastisement the lesson that you're supposed to learn, you won't continue to do that, and therefore you will have contentment. GLN 3:19. Men walk under the shadow of dread, and fear of unknown powers fills their hearts. They have fashioned images in the likeness of the things which frighten them in the gloom of their ignorance, and they spurn the real for the unreal. Did they see more clearly, they would know that the things they fear are but gentle and sturdy winds, which can lead them to fields of contentment.